I'm Jeremy Greer.
And I'm Gary Butterfield.
And this is Days of Future Cast, and we are, what did I say last time? Fatal Start. We're dealing with...
Yep, it's time for spooky beginnings.
What if it was like
the X-Men.
Slightly inconvenient middle chapter?
Yeah. Well, I think we just did that one.
I'm sure, yeah.
I think we just did X-Men Limp Middle. No, in the last issue. Operation Flaccid.
Ooh.
Flaccid midsection.
Love that. I love a flaccid midsection. Man, you sent me, you've been reading a lot of X-Men comics lately.
I have.
And you sent me a screenshot of a cover for, I don't remember the name, I know it's the Age of X-Men event.
Age of X-Men, The Extremist, issue number 3.
Issue number 3, and apparently Psylocke and Blob are in love. And the cover of this just astounded me because it's just a silhouette of the two of them, and Blob is on the right, facing Psylocke, and just it's like set over a setting sun, so this is gorgeous orange light, and all you see is like the outline of their bodies.
Silhouette.
And it's just a huge gut, just like Blob's huge, enormous gut just hanging down. And I don't feel bad about fat shaming Blob because he's not a real person. Like, I don't think...
Well, he's also the Blob.
And he's also called the Blob.
He goes by Blob on purpose.
Yeah, yeah.
The weird thing about this, so like I'm a man of carriage. Like I like a Zoftig lady. I have no problem with finding big people sexually attractive. The thing about this that made me cringe a little bit was the idea that a bunch of people grew up reading comics and were just like super hot for Psylocke.
Mm-hmm.
And this felt like weird self-insert fan fiction to me, to be like, why doesn't Psylocke ever fall in love with the Blob? You know, it felt very much like, why doesn't Psylocke ever fall in love with me? You know, like from that perspective almost.
I guess not. I guess I could see that was like, there's a character in Supernatural that's basically like the writers inserted the audience. Like, she writes fan fiction about them and everything. And when she meets the two hunks, she's like totally in love with one of them. And eventually she tries to drug one and marry him against his will. But we don't have to get into all of that. But like, it's like, why are the writers being mean to the people that are buying and consuming the stuff that they're writing? Like, what are you doing, man? Like, that's not.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's weird.
Yeah.
That huge gut, it haunts me, Gary. That huge gut as a silhouette, dude. I can't.
Yeah. The cover is undeniably like really jarring, you know? And again, like it is difficult to like, it's also the Blob. Like there's this weird like body shaming, like when in discourse around that, where like every X-Man except for the Blob is absolutely ripped, like totally cut or like rail thin.
Yep.
You know, you have your Kitty Prydes or your, you know, even Scott Summers, who is just like a guy who shoots beams, would be like an Olympic level weightlifter.
Yeah, that dude could outswim anybody, I bet.
And then you get the Blob, and the Blob is huge. Like, he's not just, you know, his visual cadence is that he's gigantic because he's the Blob. It's his mutant power, and you never get just like, what about a member of, you know, X-Force with roomy hips? You know, like there's no average. Body. So it doesn't feel like progressive to me to make Psylocke fall in love with and the fact that Psylocke is also like, you know, the 90s sex symbol X-Man.
Sure. Yeah.
You know, it doesn't feel progressive to me as much as it would if you just started having like people with regular bodies. And regular, I know, is a loaded word, but I just mean more average bodies.
Well,
not like, just having the one person who's big have it be their mutation.
Also, just like all of the fucking problematic shit with Psylocke anyway. Like, Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Yeah. It's, and, you know, Age of X-Man, pretty weak sauce. Neat ideas, but boy, I did not like that comic very much.
Yeah, it was pretty funny. Gary DM'd me like the basic premise of Age of X-Men, and I won't go into all of the details here, but like the anti-horny X-Men seemed really funny to me, and I was like, I might read this just because it's so outlandish, just to be interesting. And then like 2 days later, you're like, I finished that. Please don't download it. It's terrible. Like, it's so bad. The change was so rapid in that. I was like, oh man, I didn't even have a chance to look it up.
Even early on, I was more bemused by anything. Like the idea of there being like a squad of X-Men who go off and punish people for being horny feels like something that like was made for me, you know, because I don't like horniness in my media. I don't want these, you know, but it takes it really far where it's like you can't even make friends or like have lovers. And that's basically the whole, you know, and I've read Brave New World before somebody's like, oh, read a book, you idiot. No, I know. It's based on Brave New World. But the, you know, the idea of X-Man being like, this is my, it's like incoherent. Like at first he's like, I need to remake the world. And during the first part, during the setup, he never mentions love being the problem with the world, and then makes the like anti-love, anti-sex X-Men in his utopia. It's really fucking weird. It's somebody's very specific hang up.
Yeah.
Being made through a comic.
Somebody spent a lot of time thinking about this, and they got the opportunity to write the X-Men and said, you know what?
Yep. And it's a bummer too, because like part of I didn't find this out until after I read it, but part of the remit of the crossover was to give like a lot of marginalized creators like work on the side titles. You know, it's like Age of Apocalypse, where it's, you know, there's an alpha and omega, and then in between there's just these limited series, and just they're not very good. Like there's some moments that are okay within them, but you know, it's a bummer, because if like this was your chance at bat as a creator who doesn't get a lot of opportunities, I wish that the results were a little bit better. And I'm not putting that necessarily on them. Like they should have those, like, you know, Scott Lobdell's a really shitty writer, and I've read a lot of his stuff. Like it's not like there aren't average or, you know, super mediocre writers who are just, you know, cis white straight dudes. You know, bad writing is universal. But I would have liked to have seen this be like really fresh perspectives and really knocked it out of the park. And it was not that.
And you never know. Like these situations can always be like, editorial has this idea, and they're going to hire, and like, we want this person of color to do this idea, instead of just being like, hey, person of color, like, bring us your ideas. Yeah. So it's, you never know with these things. And that's,
it does definitely, like, there's tons of issues with it where it's like, feels like editorial was a big problem. Like the writers were not coordinated together. The suggested reading order had plot reveals come later. There's this weird thing where like characters in the same book, because of the artist, would look really the same, like their costume designs weren't differentiated enough. So I don't know, a lot of issues with that.
But luckily we don't have to deal with that in Deadly Genesis Part 4.
Nope. Spooky beginnings.
The cover here is our original team. So we've met Sway and Vulcan and the other one, and the
Darwin
guy from First Class. Yeah, sure.
I'd like to draw your attention to how Xavier's right eye is higher than his left,
and it's a different color.
In this as well,
it's
a different color.
Because
this is a very like you know, amateur rushed art, and this is not even this is Silvestri.
Yeah, this looks like a generic dude I would create in Bloodborne, because I can't. If you give me the option to do like two different pupils colors, I'm probably going to do that, because I'm still 14 inside.
Got to Bowie it up.
Oh, is there a scar
around an empty? You know, the lamest options for those things. I've been thinking about this because Tony Hawk came out, so you can make your guy, is always tattoos.
Yeah,
because tattoos are such like a personal thing, and it's like they're always just tribal nonsense.
I very much don't know why we haven't got to design your own tattoo, except it's like completely needless. Like we don't really actually need this, but like let me, like with the thumbstick, draw a dumb design and put it on my character, and if it says a F word, like who cares? No one's gonna see it.
Yep. Or upload like a JPEG or something.
Oh, see that I can see, like immediately, instantly goatsy on my Bloodborne character. Like that would be terrible. Yes. I don't want to invade somebody and see like a naked man with a like club just with a goatsy for a chest,
a full face, like a full chest, like the ultimate dark sign.
Yeah, absolutely.
Has somebody done mashup art where it's somebody goatseeing the dark sign?
I'm sure, dude. I'm sure that like Dark Souls has been out for like 11 years now or something, or 9 years now almost. So like that's got to have happened.
Yeah. If not, get on it.
Get on it, internet. Yeah.
So anyway, this cover is like the team standing around the empty wheelchair.
Yes.
I think this is actually striking and good.
Yes, me too.
This is cool. We get into it, and we're doing this flashback to Xavier first waking up Moira McTaggart. And the night where the X-Men have gone missing against Krakoa.
I like how, and I don't know what year this is or whatever, but like he waits till he gets right outside of her house to telepathically wake her up instead of like, hey, I'm on my way. Like he could have done this 15 minutes ago and let her have a cup of tea. You know what I'm saying? But no.
Maybe he tried and she snoozed him. Do you think if he tries to wake you up, you can snooze him?
Just a note. I'm sorry, I'm not accepting any telepathic communications for another 15 minutes. You will not snooze me again, Magneto. I swear to God.
I can't wait to snooze the fight for mutant rights. So he basically he's like, I wouldn't have come if it was really late, if it wasn't an emergency, you know. And he's like, yeah, I lost my X-Men.
Mm-hmm.
Like, this is a big deal. They're on a mission. I didn't think it would be dangerous, but it's actually way more dangerous than I thought. And my link to them cut out. I cannot hear them, with my brain anymore. You have to help me.
Yeah. And it's the 70s, so they don't have cell phones, despite that we have, real fancy technology.
Yes.
And this is all like Moira relating this via the video to Wolverine and Beast. And for some reason, they're surprised that Nightcrawler is in the room, which I thought was really weird.
Yeah.
Like, we didn't allow you in here, you little weirdo.
Like, this is how he doesn't pay for his own internet. He just watches YouTubes over people's shoulders and then teleports away.
God, so annoying. Man, I'm trying to do my own thing. I don't need you camping out on it.
Yeah.
Nightcrawler the piggyback is not something I would have really anticipated, but I like it. I like the idea a lot. They continue to watch the video.
Basically, they just they just watch more video, and this is Xavier showing Moria like when his link, like what he saw before the link, and it's Krakoa fighting against the X-Men, and the X-Men are losing big time.
Yep.
Here, I love this little bit with Angel being like swarmed by what look like just like beautiful birds. Like, he's like just absolutely adorable parrots, and he's just like, I need ground support.
Help! I'm the worst X-Man. I can't even take on birds. At least Aquaman can fight fish.
Help! Someone open up a pet store. Like, it's very good to me.
That's very funny. So they're fighting and losing, and Moira's like, what is this? It felt like a nightmare, and he's like, no, that was my team. That actually happened. They're still alive. I can still feel their presence. I can't communicate with them, so I need your students to come and save them. And before we go into the details of that, we go back over to Cyclops and Rachel, who have been freed from their confines, from their bounds. Yeah. And basically Rachel's like, I think he knows exactly what he's doing, but he doesn't know what his powers are yet. Like, I think this may be a mistake.
Yeah. He didn't used to be this powerful. Something happened that bumped him up way past a mega level. And he's not ready. So he's making mistakes, she says, like he fell asleep. This is obviously implied to be the M-Day energy from all those mutants in that first issue that went off into space, where Beast is like, what happened to all the energy from all those mutants that got depowered? It's supercharged Vulcan. They head upstairs, and Cyclops gets his visor, like, your powers are probably coming back soon. And Cyclops has been here before. He's not sure where it is. He sees all this wreckage and stuff. And he's just like, yeah, I don't know. And she's like, yeah, the professor's been here as well. Like, there's still that kind of like after scent here.
And Rachel asks him, like, are you sure you've never seen this dude before? Because I'm getting this idea from the leftover psychic residue that he definitely used to think he was an X-Man at some point. And we go back over to Moira kind of talking about her students, and we see that she was training all of the people that we have met so far, Sway and Petra and all these people, basically to use their powers, similar to what we've seen with X-Men in the past with what Charles does. And we go through a lot of like, oh, she can stop bullets, and this one can use rocks to kill robots and all this other stuff. And it was, basically describing who these characters are at this point.
Yep. And they all those very testing, Darwin just getting roasted, but being fireproof and stuff.
Who'd they get for the roast? Anybody good?
It's Jeffrey Ross, unfortunately. Even though he's been canceled, he's a shithead. They still got him.
Oh man.
He
Michael Rosenberg, really?
Yes. So they're spending some extra time talking about Darwin, since Darwin is going to actually survive through this. Spoilers. And has like a really interesting power, So they're like, possibilities would be endless if he can control this at will. And then Vulcan, who is like this bright-eyed kid who is just like killing it. He really wants to test his abilities, and Moira says he's a mystery. Like, he's been through a lot of hurt, but he doesn't really talk about his past.
Yes.
We don't even know his real name. He goes by Gabriel. And
they give him like the most generic power set ever. He's an energy manipulator, which I mean, I'm that.
Turn on a light switch or an energy manipulator.
Right? Like, I mean, if you consider a can of beer like some energy, which it is in a way. And then basically Charles like does the pitch. He wakes them all up because they're all in their night clothes, and he's like, "Hey, come be an X-Men and save all of the rest of the X-Men." And they are like, "Fuck yeah, let's do it. We are super excited about this."
Yeah, Moria is trying to stop them. Like, we haven't discussed it, and he's just like, "There's nothing to discuss. Like, we want to be X-Men. This is what we've been planning to do. You know, this is what we want this whole time." And he's really looking up to them. And the way Xavier does this, which is really interesting, is he puts them into like a time compression in his brain, where he does months and months of training that only take place over a couple of hours. There's a funny joke in here that's a classic, where at the bottom, where Petra walks up and goes, "Hey, who ate my fruit pies?" And Vulcan's like, "Wasn't me." And then Darwin's like, "Me neither," because he's got a mouthful of fruit pies. That is an old X-Men joke thing. There's a thing called Toy Fair Theater that was made through the magazine Toy Fair. There were these little comics they did with old X-Men figures. And it usually starred Spider-Man. I was a big fan of these when in my 20s. And then they did a part where the X-Men took over, and they were just like, "Well, now we're turning you to the wholesome comedy of the X-Men." And it was always this, like Storm walking into a room being like, "Who ate my cookies?" And Nightcrawler being like, "Not me." Psylocke going, "Not me." And Wolverine going, "Me," with a mouth and chocolate all over his face. I just kept doing it, and it was very funny to me. I forgot this reference was in here.
That's hilarious.
And I love the idea of Xavier like remaking the fruit pie discourse from 60s X-Men.
So Moira immediately questions like the morality of this, right? Like, you were deceiving all of these kids to do all of this. They think that all of this is real. You're going to have a heck of a reckoning, although nobody thinks to, like, when they get out of this, nobody picks up a calendar, thankfully.
Yeah.
Wait a minute. I figured by the time we were done, The Boys season 3 would be out, but it's still in The Boys season 2. What's up?
Xavier at some point knew there wouldn't be calendars where they're going. Yeah.
It could be dangerous. There's no time there. What do you mean no time? I just mean there's no calendars whatsoever. That's what I mean.
Yeah, I just say don't check a watch. Whatever you do. Don't stop at the Krakoa gift shop on the way out.
I do like a good training montage, and that it has
X-Men through the gift shop.
X-Men through the gift shop. I like it.
Sorry.
I do like a good training montage. And this is like good, right? Like this is a good one of those. And like they even like there's scenes of them looking at pictures of the X-Men like that Xavier has already had framed and stuff like that, which is, a callback to the first issue where Nightcrawler was looking at some of these things. And like, Moira was like, what, they're just kids. They don't really understand this stuff. Like, what if they don't actually believe in this or give a shit about it? Like, what if, but he's like, no, they want to do this. That's why I'm giving them special uniforms and names.
Yeah. And they do want to do it. Like they're both right during this section. Like, it's a weird, I feel like I'm like, position myself on this podcast as the only person in the world who ever defends Charles Xavier, and I kind of fucking hate it, because it's not a fun position to be in. But like, this whole thing is that he's the shittiest person in the world for doing this. I think that it's like the framing of this. If it was just like it's pretty shitty of him to go grab Nightcrawler and send him against Krakoa too.
Yeah, totally.
But we never questioned it. Like, it was just fine. The idea is like, oh, these were just students. Like, the Nightcrawler, like, Colossus was a fucking farmer. He wasn't even a student. He didn't even have this like montage. He
was a farmer in a different country. Like, what the hell?
Yeah, he didn't speak English. And them just being like, this is going to be awesome. Like, we want to be X-Man, and he's putting them through training. Like, I don't think that it's. I think it's shitty, but I don't think it's nearly as shitty as it's being portrayed.
Yeah,
as a thing, or like, I guess it's just the mean. It's like the kind of shitty that the X-Men kind of tend to traffic in. For superheroes more generally.
Well, and especially like compared to what we're going to hear that Xavier has done in the next two issues, like this isn't on the fucking chart. Like, this is just kind of average X-Men stuff. Like, hey, we're going to find some kids, we're going to put them in a outfit, we're going to have them shoot some robots, and then we're going to send them against a supervillain. Like, that's what the X-Men do. Like, the rest of the stuff that he has the crimes that he has committed are like way worse, and like those are the ones that are interesting, I think.
Well, it's the classic, Xavier crimes.
Yeah.
It's hiding stuff from people from their memory.
Memory manipulation. And that he's a memory manipulator. Yeah. It's right there on the fucking card.
Yeah, it sucks, right? Like, I'm not defending that. Right? You know, one of the things, like, when we did the Dark Phoenix movie, and it was just like, yeah, he shouldn't have lied to this little girl. Like, that sucks. But he also, like, her dad didn't want her and she was going to die. And, like, you know, I think there was, like, an argument to be made. You know, I think that they're, like, my favorite Xavier is when he's doing shitty things, but he's doing them for pretty reasonable reasons. You know, like, not a straight up condemnable Xavier. Like, you kind of get it.
Yeah.
That's kind of where I land with this, is where it's like, it was obviously the wrong choice in retrospect. The fact that Xavier has always been bald makes it hard to tell his, like, age during this. Like, he's supposed to be in his early 30s, and maybe this is just like my middle-aged man speaking, but I was not, you know, I'm a better person now than I was 10 years ago. You know?
Oh, absolutely. And like, you make terrible, I mean, I didn't, because I got married and that was the easiest thing to avoid mistakes. But jokes aside though, like, you make shitty mistakes. And if you have like this all encompassing power and the ability to help people with it, you're going to be like the attraction to do that. It's going to be very difficult to resist the temptation to make someone's life, quote unquote, better as you see it. And the argument there is that, like, hey, that's not his decision to make. But at the same time, we've all kept shit from our loved ones or from our significant others or from our family on the basis that, hey, I don't want you to know about this because it's going to make your life worse and my life also worse. So like, it's absolutely, it's difficult to condemn him, even if, like, 2020 hindsight, like, yeah, I probably should have told my mom that I had taken the vehicle out that night, but, you know, I didn't want to because I would have gotten in trouble. I wouldn't have been able to take the vehicle out anymore. But, you know, you could, but you could always go back and, like, look at Xavier's decisions like that. It's just, to me, it always comes down to, like, literally the memory manipulation stuff of, I'm not just going to keep this secret from you. I'm going to keep this secret that you already know from yourself. And that's what it always fucks me up, which is, I think, like, everybody can get behind is a bad thing.
It's super a bad thing. I think that, like, it's Xavier has had such a weird kind of arc in this franchise, because initially it started off and he was very two-dimensional. Like, he was this wise figure, you know, and undeniably heroic, like, presented in a heroic light. And then I feel like people started deconstructing it, you know, with like, oh, maybe he's actually not so saintly. And this has been going on for decades. Like, it's happening here. Like, in the 90s, there was the Xavier files where, like, it was a big deal that he had files on how to kill all the X-Men if he had to. You know, all these things, like, they've been doing Dark Side of Xavier. But I think that we're kind of, and maybe this happens in Hoxpox, and I just haven't read it, but, like, the more nuanced, like, yeah, Xavier fucked up, but he had these reasons, like, let's do him as, like, kind of an anti-hero phase. I feel like we've kind of gone from, like, hero to secret villain, you know, without ever hitting, like, a spot that is more interesting than that. Man. Like, it's hard to think, like, what are the good Xavier comics?
Yeah,
where it's not just about something shitty he did.
I was kind of thinking the same thing, because, like, I remember as a kid and as a young teenager, just, like, Xavier was like, oh man, he's the coolest dude. Like, he's the leader. And, like, I always want to know more about him and all this other stuff. Like, I was because I was just a little too young to really appreciate, like, the weird stuff that was going on. And really at that time, like, not a lot of that stuff had been done, or at least I hadn't encountered a lot of that stuff. So you know, I'm sitting here kind of thinking, like, has there been a Xavier? Like, maybe that should be the next thing that we try to seek out, is, like, has there been a really good Xavier story where he's not just a complete shitheel, or just like a Charlie's Angel character, right? Like, he's not just on the phone assigning missions and then hanging out and being the communicator of everybody. So
he's actually in the Mystique miniseries that Brian K. Vaughan wrote. He kind of operates like that. He's kind of like sends Mystique into missions. She has on mission handler, but he kind of gives her stuff to do as kind of like Charles Xavier, or not Charles Xavier, Charlie's Angels.
Yeah.
Charles Xavier's Angels, Charles Angels. But yeah, it kind of does a little bit of that. But as far as, like, a point of view comic, I think that's what X-Men Legion was trying to do. That came out of Messiah Complex, but I never really read very much of that, even though it was by a writer I liked. It was Mike Carey. I thought the comic was boring, so I didn't keep up with it. But maybe that eventually gets good, and that's so. If you're hearing this, like, you know, hit us up. We're not going to do it next. We already have planned what we're going to do next.
Yes,
but I am interested in. And man, just I started looking through what we're doing next again. That has a very funny take on Xavier.
Yes,
like, it's a funny comic anyway.
I'm really excited about it.
Xavier's like God, his weird obsession with just like making sure his mutants can have sex is so fucking funny and weird.
And that'll be your hint. So and you can go to the Days of Future Cast Instagram if you want to get more hints to figure out what we're covering next season.
For the ARG.
Yeah. There's a music podcast that I finally had to unfollow it on Twitter because I stopped listening to it a while back because it just kind of lost me. It was a little too intellectual about music, and I don't really like that in some cases. But there was a picture of Kendrick Lamar that came out, and it was just him. And it was apparently like a picture on a set from a music video, and it was just him sitting down next to a phone booth and like, hey, had the receiver in his ear. And the guy that runs the Twitter account was like, all right, I don't normally do this, but here's, here's a big thread dissecting this picture, 1 out of 8, and I'm like, nah, fam, we're not doing this. I'm not. Nah.
This is cute when Sinclair does it, like
yeah,
with the trailer. But it's kind of they're kind of aware of it. So
yeah, they were doing it to be goofy and funny, and this dude was completely serious. So, So yeah, we go through all of the training montage, and we get to them getting on the Blackbird and leaving to go save the X-Men, and Charles pulls Vulcan off to the side, and Moira is says something to the extent of, if I had known really what he was going to tell Vulcan that day, or Kid Vulcan that day, I would have said, and then the video camera cuts off because it's we're going to get 90% of the information off of this airplane crashed video, but not 100%.
Yep. This fool's errand. I like this like not very true to Wolverine dialogue. Hey, what's the deal, McCoy? Does not sound like Wolverine to me.
Hey man, what's the deal?
What's happening, dude?
Hey, the video stopped.
Bro.
Hey, the video stopped working, man. Can you know how to fix this?
Buffering? What's that?
I don't understand. I'm clicking play. Play is the
button. So they basically are just like, what happened to these kids? We cut back over to Cyclops and Marvel Girl, and they see where they're at. It's the Moira McTaggart Research and Development Lab. And Scott's like, oh yeah, like I have been here. Xavier helped design this. I came here, at some time, but I can't really remember why. He has memories of this place, but not what he did here. And Vulcan shows up and goes, that is because he didn't want you to. And he's in his old uniform. He's dressed up as Kid Vulcan now.
Yeah.
He says like, yeah, this is before I saved you. This is the first time we met. And Cyclops is obviously freaked out by this.
Yes. And he also calls him Big Brother. So
yep. Huge reveals here. The backup strip is about Kid Vulcan. They saved that one for last. I am really bored by space stuff in general, and tend to be pretty bored by X-Men space stuff.
Okay.
And that's what this is. It's him being raised by Shi'ars, mostly. And I'm a little bit bored by it.
Yep.
Up until he gets to Earth, like he's dressed up like Anakin. He's got a Star Wars robe on, and I think it's kind of dumb. His powers manifest. He accidentally kills like this weird Shi'ar nun who is hanging out. They get to his recruitment, like when he gets to Earth, and this is more interesting. And it shows him like meeting Cyclops and kind of his hero worship.
Yeah. And he also like is actively lying to Moira, because Moira's like, are you remembering anything in your dreams? And he's like, no, not at all. And he like 100% is starting to remember stuff. And when he meets Xavier almost immediately is like, hey, I know who you are. I can feel it. Your brain scan DNA or whatever, but he doesn't tell anybody about that.
Yeah. What he finds, Third Summer's brother, which we'll get to. I love him meeting Scott and them doing a little impromptu training session and how psyched he is.
Yeah, dude.
I think that's very sweet.
What if
be like, hey, do you want to pop some dingers with like Mr. Baseball Man or something?
Well, like, what if you met Paul F. Tompkins and he was like, hey man, you want to just record like a little one-off?
Do some podcast?
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you want to do a little podcast, a little improv?
Yeah.
I'd be like, terrified, no, sir. But it would also be
no, sir, I do not.
I'm sorry, Mr. Tompkins. What's your name, Mr. Tompkins?
Would you just say like my name on a podcast and make fun of that so I don't have to be there? Like, this seems really intimidating.
Like, can I PayPal you $30 and then we can forget this ever happened? Because I really love you and I appreciate your stuff and I support you already, but like,
can I PayPal you $42 and just have this come up as an anecdote on a different podcast, and you can use somebody else's name? And by the way, my name is Cole Ross. If you need to,
But yeah, that's the issue.
That's it.
That's it. We're in the middle. We're heading towards the end here.
Mhm.
This is a better middle chapter than the last one. I think like there's more incident. And more just kind of, interesting things like him dropping that he knew Scott and everything. Everyone had been able to guess, but him being the third Summers brother is, has been more subtly hinted at up until this point. And that's we'll talk about it more in the next couple issues, but that was such a big deal. Like that was one of the only really long running X-Men mysteries.
Yeah.
That was going on.
Because stuff had been hinted at, like there was always like these subtle and not so subtle
for
like,
decades,
literal decades, like Claremont days.
Yeah.
We were hinting around to this.
Yep.
So like when this finally happened, like people were like, "Holy shit, this is a mind blowing realization." And it's this, and just like most mysteries, like once you get all of the details, you're like, "Oh well, that's completely normal and kind of boring." So see you later.
Yeah. It's a smart way, I think, to do a third Summers brother when they reveal how. I just like this guy immediately became this character who went off and did space shit with the X-Men. Like there was like a summer event that was all just, the Shi'ar Empire stuff. And I've just never been interested in that.
Well, and the powers aren't like super interesting, right? Like his powers are like, I can do anything with energy. And
and
there's no real
100%.
like threat to the guy. I mean there is, but like at the end of this is basically like resolved with conversation and just like a couple of punches. But like the idea that this dude just has like all these crazy powers in one kind of immediately makes him uninteresting. Like there's just you just need like Cyclops has laser beams or concussive blast, but he's also like he can do like a fucking backflip, like because he trained to do that, and that's cool and interesting.
It turns out not to be like he's just kind of an angsty teen.
Yeah.
Who's an adult, and it's just like, I understand the pathos that comes from finding out you have a shitty brother. It's like, oh, I got this half brother. He's real shitty though. Like that's a relatable situation.
Sure.
But then he went on to star, like the X-Men stories like centered on this dude for a year or two, and that's a bummer.
I am like I've been waiting for the penny to drop for years for not for my dad to have a secret family, but for him to have gotten some chick pregnant. You know what I'm saying?
Okay.
Like he's not secret family guy. I don't think he could really keep it up for that long. But like I don't think he could do that whole situation. But he could is definitely illegitimate child guy. And I've just been waiting for someone to.
Twitter, you prepared with wife guys. Are you ready for illegitimate child guy?
Every woman on Twitter. Yeah, children. We know.
I know society may think me strange, but I love my curvy illegitimate children. There's a rap I made about it.
Why didn't you help your curvy illegitimate children? Why didn't you save them from the cliff? That seems bad.
Yeah, just like, well, I figured we'd blog about my curvy illegitimate children falling down a cliff. Have you seen the video of the adult TikTok house?
No.
Oh, dude! Like after this, you gotta. It's the kind of thing you watch because you hate it.
Okay, sure,
it's a.
Well, you said adult TikTok house, and I just like immediately went to hate.
I know,
so.
I did. It's real, dude. It's this guy doing this little TikTok about him and a bunch of influencers who live in this like fancy California mansion. He's going and introducing everybody in the adult TikTok house, and introduced the term adult TikTok house to me.
Yeah,
and it's bleak, man. It's like the cultural form of these wildfires. Like it's fucking bleak.
I was introduced to that concept with Vine because apparently that's like that kind of thing started with Vine. But also like in the latest like wave of bad shit happening to women in video games, the fighting game community like had all of these like accusations about players and all this other stuff, and there's some like super gross stuff that I don't really want to repeat here because it gets into like territory that we're not really equipped to deal with on a comic book podcast. But apparently there was a dude, and apologies for forgetting his name, I'm not a member of the Smash community, but he basically ran like a house that all of these weird Twitch streamers could live in. But he had like it comes out that he has like the most bizarre rules ever. So the thing that I'm remembering specifically is like, somebody stole $200 out of my room, So I am going, unless someone gives it back and they can do so anonymously, I'm going to go into every single room of the house and break something important to you. And I'm going to do that once a day until I get my $200 back. Like it was
Jesus
crazy.
Christ.
Like it was like crazy shit. And the dude was like obviously very abusive and like there's a lengthy list of allegations, but like people were living with it because it was like, oh yeah, that's what we did. Like I lived there for 4 years or whatever. And I'm like, what the fuck? There's this whole world out there that I'm not exposed to. And adult TikTok house is definitely one of them.
There's also, God, I want to make sure I'm remembering this. No, not horse. I think there's something called like Final Fantasy VII House. Yeah. There's a Vice article that I got to send you if you want to read about the Final Fantasy VII House, which is similar energies to that.
That's so fucking wild,
dude.
What are they?
Are
they making content for Final Fantasy VII? What is the?
No, it's just like an abusive asshole and a bunch of like his anime harem. Like all live in this like squalid hellhole.
Oh Jesus! I wonder if this is the same thing, and I'm confusing Smash with. Like
well, this was old.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
You know this so I feel like it's just everyone's there's always got like house guys are now the new wife guys.
Oh no.
You know. So anywho.
Yeah, if you like this podcast.
You know what else is on the internet? This podcast.
Yeah, tell your friends about it. Go to patreon.com/Duckfeed.tv and give us some money about it. Leave some reviews about it on iTunes or Stitcher or whatever. Well, I don't know where the fuck people leave reviews. Yeah, but just tell your friends about it. That's the best way. Yeah. Follow your heart.
We really appreciate you. Yeah, follow your heart. Call your congressman.
Yeah.
We really appreciate you. And until next time, what was the sign off?
I've already forgotten it.
Yep, it's been a half hour, so I have no memories.
Bye, everybody.
Bye. Xavier took it from us.
Xavier took it from us.